All right, shalom, shalom. I'm Rebekah Bat Yehovah from Teshuva Ministries, and welcome to my 2021 summer series, Flat Earth Deception, and this is episode number 10. We are actually to number 10. We are 2 away from the end. Yay! I'm so excited. I have had like this black hole around me for it's basically been a month, and so I'm glad that we're almost out of it. Well, then I have to edit all these and then put them up, but whatever. Anyway. All right, so today we are going to talk about gurus of this movement. I know we touched on history before, but we're going to talk a little bit about the gurus of this movement and how it actually started again. And then we're going to talk about the danger of it, ramifications of it, and let's see, what are the traits of a conspiracist? Conspiracist? Somebody who believes in conspiracies. Somebody who promotes them. We're going to look at the traits of those people. Okay, a little housekeeping again, just to begin. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, go to our website, get on our email list. Check out our website while you're there. There's all kinds of things there, and definitely go check out the 4 different stores that we have, online stores. We have Rebekah Co., which is it's basically all about feast products, things to help you celebrate the feast and obey Yehovah with the correct, true holy days. And then there is DVDs. I have I have all of my old teachings on DVDs, and I would sure love you to go support that venture and purchase some DVDs so that in case YouTube goes down, you got them on DVD if you like them, if you want to keep them. Another store is the the clothing, the apparel. I have some t-shirts and sweatshirts and stuff available, so go check that out, as well as our bookstore. So Starlight Publishing, I have a lot of books available for you to help you walk this journey and path of repentance. And then definitely support us down below in the description. There are some links to how to do that through PayPal. There's also Cash App. You can send stuff through the mail if you want. There's an address on our website. But however it is, I am seeking Yehovah's provision through you. I know that he will provide no matter what, but I know he likes to work through people. So definitely need your support to continue doing what we're doing. And also, while you're at our website, you might want to check out Kingdom University. Kingdom University is a place where we are uploading more and more content to, more courses about the feasts and about how to be a Melchizedek priest of Yeshua's in his Melchizedek priesthood, how to operate as a priest in his priesthood. So there's a lot of great things happening there, and come be a part of a wonderful place. There's also Ladies of Teshuva group. So if you are a woman who is in need of fellowship and support, please click the link below and you can learn how to join our group. There's also a youth group we have that my daughter Hadassah is taking care of for me in the same application, so same app. So go check those things out. So let's get going on this number 10, because this is going to be a little bit of a long one again. I was hoping to keep these videos down to like 5 minutes. Maggie said, make them 5 minutes. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. So put this in and take a long drive, or put it in on Shabbat morning when you have nothing else to do. All right, so here we go. gurus of the flat earth movement. All right, so who was it that has actually started the revival of the flat earth idea? Okay, these are rabbit trails. This is crazy making, but here we go. So first of all, in the mid 1800s, there was a guy who was named Samuel Robithon. He lived between 1816 and 1884. He went by the name Parallax. And basically, he was an inventor who came up with great ideas, I guess. And so he actually is the one that reopens the idea of the earth as being flat. Even though this had been actually resolved thousands of years ago, thousands of years before him, and it had been resolved to be a sphere. But he decides, no, he wants to reopen this and says, no, I think it's flat. So he was an English inventor who wrote a book called Zedic Astronomy, Earth Not a Globe. And I think that's how you say it, Zedic Astronomy. So his pseudonym was Parallax. He wrote under that name. And his method, which he called Zedic Astronomy, Zetetic astronomy, models the Earth as a flat disk centered at the North Pole in the center, and bounded along its perimeter by a wall of ice, with the sun, moon, and planets and stars moving only several thousand miles above the surface of the Earth. I just have to say that is the exact same, it sounds to me like the very exact same map that flat earthers use today is his map that he concocted out of his head. It reminds me a lot of Darwin. You know, Darwin had the tree of life, so he concocts this out of his head, and here you have thousands of millions of people buying into this when he concocted it out of his head, right? This is what it sounds like here. Samuel concocts this idea out of his head, and now, you know, he's trying to sell this idea, and he actually, you know, if we scream forward to today, flat earthers today are using this very same map, pretty much. What he did was he did one experiment. He's like, okay, I think the earth is flat actually. We're gonna reopen this when it was already laid to rest thousands of years ago. But he did one experiment where he measured the long, straight drainage ditches of the Bedford levels. Okay, so I guess there's this huge, long, I saw pictures of it, huge, long canal, basically. It's a drainage thing, and it just goes on for about 6 miles. So he actually gets into the little water there, puts his little scope up and looks, and obviously he doesn't see any curve. So after measuring, you know, this thing, and he's seeing a lack of a curve to this canal, he was convinced of the flatness of the earth. And so then he began to lecture on the topic and try to prove to everyone that he was right. So he does one experiment, looks with his own eyes and says, nope, it's not, there's no curve, it's flat, and then he goes and lectures on it. Well, come to find out, he charges for these lectures, of course. So he's a schemer, he's a scammer, he isn't a businessman, he's an entrepreneur. So he charges for his flat earth lectures and convinces people to believe that the most important conclusions of modern astronomy were seriously wrong. He didn't have all the things that flat earthers have to deal with right now, which are things like GPS and satellites and planes and rockets and things that, you know, need a spherical ball to operate. So he didn't have to deal with all that. So it was much easier for him to pull the wool over people's eyes to make money. And that's what it was. It was really, they couldn't have possibly been about anything else except that he wanted to make money. This was something that was going to tickle people's ears, and so he started charging for lectures. So here's the other caveat to the whole thing, which is pretty funny in my opinion. So when he was starting to get going and becoming, you know, learning his trade of deception through what he was speaking, he actually once ran away from a lecture in Blackburn when he couldn't explain why the hulls of the ship disappeared before the masts when sailing out to sea. So he had somebody say, hey, wait. I observed with my own eyes the hull of the ship going down and the mast staying the same. So explain that. And he couldn't explain it, and he ran away. But he ends up becoming a pretty great debater and ends up being able to convince people otherwise. All right, so then let's scream forward just a little bit into the late 1800s. There were two historians, they were basically skeptics, who are largely to blame for this theory. Outside of Parallax, who was in the earlier 1800s and all his theory. And you know what? Parallax actually had a following, and he created some students of his, people to pass on his lie. And they actually came over, one of them came over to the US and continued to spread the lie over here, which ended up being, and I'll get to this in a sec, but it ends up that it became the Flat Earth Society later on in the 50s. So two historians in the late 1800s are primarily to blame for this. John William Draper and Andrew Dickinson White, as I mentioned before in one of the other videos. So they believe that only after a man escaped his religious bindings in the Renaissance that he was able to think for himself. End quote. So it is understood that Draper was trying to create a war between science and religion. So I don't know if you understand the ramifications of this, but basically Draper was painting the medieval church as teaching flat earth, which we talked about before, but they weren't teaching flat earth. They were actually teaching spherical earth. But if he could get that thought across, then it would therefore invalidate the Bible, because flat earth, supposedly believed by the Christians, defied all science, all the science that had been and was being discovered about the spherical earth. Thus, the two, religion and science, couldn't play together anymore. So Draper was actually changing history to fit his agenda, as we mentioned earlier. So between these guys who lived in the 1800s, this is really where the flat earth nonsense started. All right, it really wasn't this long history of where all of humanity believed in a flat earth, and that Columbus, that he couldn't get people on his boat to sail with him because they were afraid they were going to drop off the end. That was actually made up. So that wasn't the reason why he couldn't get people to actually go with him in his sail. When he sailed, Christopher Columbus couldn't get people because of many different reasons. One was they didn't know how far it was, and they didn't think that he would be able to have the provisions that they needed in order to stay alive for the whole trip. And there were other reasons. Some say that he was actually a Jew fleeing from the Inquisition and all the things that were going on in Spain. Anyway, so basically these guys in the 1800s were the fathers of this nonsense. But this movement actually seemed to die out around World War I, but it was revisited again in 1956 when the Flat Earth Society began. And so after the Flat Earth Society was established, it was there, it kind of hung out, but it wasn't like in the forefront. It wasn't like in the limelight so it was kind of quiet in the background until 2017. Yeah, go figure. I thought we were smarter than this in this decade. But anyway, I guess we're not. So since 2017, there are a lot of false teachers who have a growing number of followers and disciples. But two of the loudest who are offering the Kool-Aid of this flat earth nonsense, who I want to point out, are Mark Sargent and Rob Skiba. Before we go into that, I do want to mention that there is actually a flat earth church. started by David Gordon. And one of the reasons he started it was because he was tired of discrimination. He was tired of getting, having hate coming his way for being a flat earther. So he decided to kind of hide under the idea of it being a religion. So he thought, well, if I make it a religion and I make it a church, then I won't be persecuted so much, because he kept using the word persecuted. So he's persecuted for his beliefs, so he's going to hide in the folds of a church idea. So he actually has started a flat earth church. All right. That should make you wary, believers. The scattered, you need to wake up and really look at what's going on here. And I don't think you are. Anybody who's buying into this nonsense, who is toting Torah or believing in Yeshua the Messiah, you're not really looking at this if you've bought this. All right, and if you know someone who's buying it and you don't, you need to be armed so that you can talk to them, and you need to stand strong. So here we go. We're going to talk about two of the gurus that are offering this Kool-Aid. Obviously, Mark Sargent is not a believer. He's not toting Torah, but I'm going to point him out because he's pretty big in this movement. According to Wiki 2, quote, this is a quote, Mark K. Sargent is one of the leading proponents of and recruiters for the flat earth conspiracy theory in the United States. According to critics, his YouTube videos have greatly accelerated the popularization of modern flat earth belief, without scientific merit, of course. Mark is not a scientist at all, but he was a pro-computer gamer from Boulder, Colorado, which in my opinion says a lot. All right, so on with the quote from Wiki. It says, in 2015, Sargent released a series of videos he created on YouTube called Flat Earth Clues, which questioned the accepted shape of the Earth. The series attracted 2 million views, propelling the rise of the modern flat Earth movement. Sargent works to convince others that the Earth is a flat disk with a giant wall of ice around the circumference. An indestructible dome is claimed to be attached to the rim, making it a closed system. Sargent alleges that all world governments have been lying about the shape of the planet, and that NASA faked the Apollo program as well as all the other space exploration programs. End quote. So critics point out that the flat earth beliefs that are promoted by Sargent are pseudoscience. The theories and the assertions are being based on beliefs rather than scientific knowledge. And remember again, what is it that we get to ask for? We are supposed to ask for the wisdom who's going to give us knowledge and understanding, right? This ain't happening here. All right? They are classified by experts as a purposeful denial called denialism. Sargent says that being single was a contributing factor to his discovering and believing in the flat earth conspiracy, which is very interesting, I think, because duh, he's lost because he doesn't have an Ezer Kenegdo, so he is worshiping the creation, not the creator. He doesn't have an Ezer Kenegdo. He doesn't have a good Ezer Kenegdo. If he had, he might have a bad Ezer Kenegdo that will lead him to worshiping something else. But obviously, Adam was not supposed to be alone. Do you remember this? In the garden, Adam was not supposed to be alone. It was not good for Adam to be alone. Yehovah said it himself. The creator looked at Adam after he created Adam, and he said, oh, you know what? He gave a command to Adam. He said, don't eat from that tree. Whoa, in the next sentence he said, what? It is not good for Adam to be alone. Man to be alone. I must make an Ezer Kenegdo for him. A woman. Ezer Kenegdo is a powerful thing to unpack, but a man needs an Ezer Kenegdo because an Ezer Kenegdo is a guide. All right, that's what she was designed for. And to guide where? To guide into proper worship. And had Mark Sargent had a good guide, maybe he wouldn't even be down this track. But he himself admits that because he's been alone, then he can go down this track, right? This foolish track. With a good Ezer Kenegdo wouldn't allow him to do that, right? All right, I'm gonna get a lot of comments on that. All right, so going on. So actually, let me just let him finish his quote here. He says, quote, most people get married and have kids, but if you don't, you have a huge amount of free time on your hands. I just can't, he admits this, it blows me away. He has free time in his hands, so he's gonna do something evil, right? That's why people were made to work. That's why Yehovah said you must work. Work 6 days, rest 1. Why? Because you can get into trouble when you have absolutely nothing else to do, right? He said work for 6, rest for 1, not rest for all, or not have nothing to do for all, because then you get in trouble. You know, you need a land to plow and wheat to grind and food to make so that you can have something to do with your life that won't get you into the trouble. Like this. This is deep trouble. So if there were only no McDonald's hamburgers for him to eat, right? No grocery stores for him to go to, no Taco Bell so that he could, you know, just go and keep on going with his lies, right? No, he would have to be hard at work harvesting his wheat and making his bread so that he could live another day. And then at night he would drop into bed so exhausted from all his work that he wouldn't have to fill up his time with this nonsense and trying to create chaos, right? All right, so 2 Thessalonians 3:10 says, "For even when we were with you, we used to give you this order. If anyone is not willing to work, then he is not to eat either." I like that. I think that's cool. 2 Thessalonians 3:10. If anyone is not willing to work, then he is not to eat either. Yeah. I hope you're working. I hope you're working for 6 and resting for 1. All right, Proverbs 15:19 says, "The way of the slacker is like a hedge of thorns, but the path of the upright is a highway." That's what it feels like. A slacker, somebody who has too much time on their hands, they're going to, create thorns and thistles and just wickedness. All right, Ezekiel 16:49 says, "Sodom's sins were pride." That's interesting. Whoa. Sodom's sins were pride. What is their banner? They've got the rainbow they stole. Well, they're standing under the rainbow going, ah, la, 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 you can't destroy me, you promised. But then, see this? It says Sodom's sins were pride, gluttony, and laziness, while the poor and needy suffered outside her door. Laziness. Laziness will get you into trouble. 1 Thessalonians 4:11 says, "You should mind your own business and work with your hands, just as we told you to." Mind your own business and work with your hands, just as we told you to. Work with your hands. That's so important. Proverbs 21:25-26 says, "The desire of the slothful kills him, for his hands refuse to labor." The desire of the slothful kills him, for his hands refuse to do labor. Wow. Ecclesiastes 10:18 says that laziness leads to a sagging roof. Idleness leads to a leaky house. So if you're idle, if you don't have work to do with your hands, your house, your kingdom, your domain is going to fall. So let's continue on and look at what Wiki continues to say about Mark Sargent. So, quote, "Sargent also incorporates other conspiracy theories into his worldview, accusing government agencies of employing Freemasons to protect their secrets is one. Sargent is also interested in cryptozoology, believing that Bigfoot exists somewhere out there in the woods." Okay. So Marathi TV comments further about Mark by saying, quote, "In addition to pushing flat earth theories, Mark also believes the 9/11 bombing was fake and that the Pearl Harbor attacks were fake." Man, tell the people who lost friends and family in both of those that was fake, right? What? The gall. The lies. It continues on and it says, "Sargent quit his day job and now depends solely on the royalties he makes from his documentaries, interviews, and YouTube channel." Wow. So, why in blue blazes would you listen to anything this man says? You want to believe this man who used to spend most of his time in the different gaming worlds on the computer and who quit his day job to make money selling this lie? If you are a disciple of Yeshua, you should have nothing to do with this. You know, you should rather follow our Rabbi Yeshua and his father Yehovah, who created our planet to work together seamlessly with all the rest of the planets in the solar system, and who has allowed us and many witnesses to discover through observation and true science that the world is a sphere. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about Mark Sargent, who is one of the leading men, teachers, theorists, liars in this whole entire thing. We also now need to talk about someone else who is within the body of Messiah, saying he is in part of the body of Messiah, who is in a really huge danger to the body of Messiah. And that is Skiba. There's also people like Eric Dubé, David Murphy, and Philip Stallings, etc. But I'm today going to just talk a little bit about Rob. It doesn't give me a lot of pleasure to do this, and I know that I'm going to get a ton of comments, and people are not going to be happy with me naming someone, but somebody has to say something, and I'm going to, because I'm sick of this lie. All right, so let's just talk about this for a second. According to Marathi TV, Rob is one of the most prominent flat earth theorists and believes that Earth is the center of the universe. In addition to his beliefs about the Earth, Rob is also a Torah follower. So even the world knows that Rob is a Torah follower, and he's promoting flat Earth and Torah at the same time. And I find this sickening, honestly, because flat Earth goes against what is real, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit. Anyway, okay. I just want to say OMG all the time. I want to say, oh my God, this is a huge problem. I would bet that he is one of the reasons that we have the Hebrew Roots movement, about 50% of the Hebrew Roots Messianic movement believing in flat Earth. So his link to Torah as a flat earther is single-handedly going to damage the credibility of all else that we teach from Torah. His link to Torah as a flat earther is single-handedly going to damage the credibility of all else that we teach from Torah. He is teaching the same fallacy as Samuel Robithon, who is named Parallax. He's teaching the same fallacy that Mark Sargent is, who is not a believer at all. He's teaching the same fallacy. He's just putting a spin on it to make it something that believers can kind of like swallow. So if you type in flat earth and Jim Staley in the same line, you are going to come up with a post that Jim Staley did in Facebook about flat earth. And it seems like his post attracted a ton of flat earthers who felt that he was actually on their side. So as I was reading down through the comments, there was a comment by a guy named Chris who said, quote, "Thanks to folks like Rob Skiba," this is how I'm going to say his name, I don't know if it's proper, but thanks to folks like Rob, I have spied out the earth for myself for the first time in my life. My report? Let's go up at once and occupy it, for we are all well able to overcome it. What the heck? All right, so I'm going to come back to Jim Staley's post here in a little bit and talk about some of the comments in the feed. I wanted to just mention that I have known of Rob for many years. So as soon as I discovered that the thing that he teaches most is flat earth, I avoided him like the plague. And I told everyone else to as well. But obviously, some people didn't listen to me. I recently went to his website and his YouTube channel and discovered that he continues to unashamedly promote this lie, and yet teaches Torah at the same time. This is a problem. So 2 Corinthians 11:13-15 says, "For such men are false apostles, deceitful workmen, disguising themselves as apostles of Messiah. And no wonder, for even Hasatan disguises himself as an angel of light. So it is by no surprise if his servants also disguise themselves as servants of righteousness. Their end will correspond to their deeds." Proverbs 15:14-21 says, "The heart of him who has understanding seeks knowledge, but the mouths of fools feed on folly. Folly is a joy to him who lacks sense, but a man of understanding walks straight ahead." And then Romans 16:17-18 says, "I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, to watch out for those who cause divisions and create obstacles contrary to the doctrine that you have been taught. Avoid them. For such persons do not serve our Master Yeshua, but their own appetites. And by smooth talk and flattery, they deceive the hearts of the naive." That is powerful. Take that to heart. Go read these for yourself. Highlight them in your scriptures and come back to them regularly and remind yourself what the scripture says. Rob is smooth in his talk, probably like Parallax in the 1800s, who sold snake water to the people who bought his tickets to his lectures and bought his book, right? But Rob lacks sense and is deceiving the hearts of the naive, as that scripture talked about. He is not serving Yeshua the Messiah because he is not performing what our rabbi, Yeshua the Messiah, said to do. In fact, he's doing quite the opposite. He is causing chaos among the body. So he looks like a normal guy teaching the Bible, but he feeds on folly. And as we have seen, this whole entire flat earth thing started with folly. So looking through his studies, it could seem to the untrained eye that he could be correct. But you must remember that he is a biblical literalist. We've talked about that before. You can't take the entire scriptures as completely literal. A lot of it is poetry. I haven't tried, but I would guess that if I did try to have a conversation about this with him, it wouldn't go anywhere because he is not open to seeing the poetry of the scriptures in any of it. He will say that the Bible is generally saying X, even while seeing something very different with his own eyes. He tries to force a literal interpretation of these poetic Bible verses. True science can't witness this, nor can it validate. People are not trees. Our own eyes tell us that, right? And it can go on and on. People aren't grasshoppers, right? The biggest problem is that he also already has formed his agenda, affected too many people, produced too many videos on the topic, and he can't go back now. He is in way too deep. So, without saying any more, I would warn you to stay clear of him and his teachings, for he is a false prophet. I'm not trying to smear someone's name. I'm trying to give a warning. And that said, let us all proactively let Yeshua be the final judge. Ask for wisdom. She will be given to you. And wisdom, you're going to get understanding, knowledge, and then understanding. All right, that's what you need. And you need discernment as well, to discern between right and wrong, to discern between a true teacher and a false teacher, a true prophet and a false prophet. Okay, let's go on. So we've talked about some gurus. Now we're going to talk about dangers. I mean, I was kind of talking about dangers then too, but I've got some more things for you to watch out for. But it's kind of crazy because if you haven't already noticed, the media and the left-wing agenda is beginning to lump people who are anti-vax with the flat earthers. So they're calling anti-vax people conspirators or conspiracists or conspiracy people that buy into conspiracies. But they're combining the two. And they're saying if you're anti-vax, then you are linked somehow with these weird flat earthers. So in their minds, if you don't believe in vaccinations, then you must be just like those insane flat earthers. So those who are resisting the vaccine, which has observable consequences, like people dying or having severe side effects from taking it, they are actually being linked to flat earth, which is not scientifically observable in the least. Flat earth is becoming a tool to lump true issues that require our vigilance with false conspiracy theories. So I think this is getting dangerous. So I believe that the flat earth deception has been created as a tool to invalidate the opposition to the mark of the beast, the vax, and anyone teaching against it. When they see that Torah keepers believe in flat earth, then they might begin to censor or eliminate anyone who looks like a whacked Torah keeper, because they know that the earth is not flat. So as Chris Fleming writes in Flat wrong, the misunderstood history of flat earth theories. He says, quote, that for most people being described as a flat earther is an insult. The idea of the earth being flat is considered not only wrong, but a model of wrongness, the gold standard of being incorrect about something. Flat earther is simply a scientifically seasoned variation of idiot. To have this gold standard of being incorrect linked with Torah is quite definitely concerning and not something that we all can just shrug off. This is important. So we have looked into gurus and looked at some danger from this belief, and now we're going to look into what the traits are of people who buy into conspiracy theories. So Isaac and I have determined that this movement out of man-made religion seems to attract people who have certain personality traits. For one thing, many have control issues and they don't have a teachable spirit. Sounds familiar how Yahweh refers to Israel, actually. Many are lazy and they have this feeling, they feel entitlement. Still others seem to have Moses envy. They seek a high position in the body and demand that everyone treat them as such. Still others are people who buy into conspiracy theories very easily without using mature discernment. So perhaps this is because they discover that they have been lied to their whole life about religion. So I understand that. But then these people take it to the next step and they believe that literally everything else anyone teaches them is suspect. Then that is actually a very exhausting way to live, people. Very exhausting. To think that absolutely everything is a lie and that you're being lied to about everything. That's a lot. That's heavy. That's exhausting. So doesn't this whole thing kind of remind you of Christians who like their ignorance? I feel like when we come out of Christianity, we really don't leave it all behind. We kind of bring it with us and a lot of not only just tapes in our head, but bad habits. So when we give empirical biblical evidence that proves what grace actually means and that we have to actually do something to get saved, and that the law was actually never done away with, or even if we just relate history to someone who is still a Christian, it's a history that proves Christmas and Easter or pagan holidays, they flat out deny it. And they say, well, that's not what it means to me. Or they put their head in the sand and say, well, it doesn't matter. I'm good with this. This is fine. So a lot of ignorance there. So you can present the truth and they just don't want to see it. So I feel like it's the same thing here. You present the truth about the earth being round to somebody who has bought into flat earth, and they just say, well, they flat out deny it, and they ignore all the evidence, all the science, and they say, well, that's not what I want it to be. I know it's flat, even though they're not God. Go figure. All right. So I can actually see how this flat earth movement could actually attract some Christians. Most Christians believe that sin does not actually equal death because of some magical thing that happens when one recites the sinner's prayer. It's almost like reality is suspended for this belief of sloppy grace. It's a myth. Even though the reality of it is that Scripture clearly says that sin equals death. And we see evidence of that all around us. These grace thumpers want to say that grace covers all and that magically the consequence of death disappears. So likewise, perhaps it is easy for them to suspend reality to embrace this flat earth myth as well. It's kind of hard for me to understand, but as Isaac always reminds me, I have to remember that Christians, just like the flat earthers, have already chosen what they want to believe. They've already chosen the delusion. But what I don't understand is how the Torah community is buying into this crap. The only thing that I can think is that they are sheep who think that they are not sheep. And they have immature discernment about who to learn from and who not to learn from. So everything is open to them. Everything is a discussion. Everything is open for discussion. But that can't be so. That shouldn't be so. Some things need to not be discussed. Some things need to be closed, especially when you have empirical evidence for it. Okay, so we're not going to, as a community, start to open up the discussion. Did Yeshua actually raise from the dead? Now, there are probably people out there that are doing that in this community, but that should be a closed case. We have witnesses to him being resurrected on the other side. We have witnesses who said they saw him after he died. Okay, they saw him die, they put him in the tomb, and then at the end of Shabbat, he resurrects. They see him come to them after he resurrected. Miriam saw him. You know, the disciples saw him that night. They saw the scars in his hands. They recognized who he was, and he was alive. So, end of story, in the sense of we don't need to hash out, did he or did he not? This is the same thing with the flat earth. We have witnesses to the spherical earth. We don't have any witnesses to the flat earth. Let's go on to look at some of the traits that we see in people who believe in conspiracy theories, especially in this, flat earth conspiracy, or this flat earth myth, fallacy, fairy tale, delusion, whatever. First of all, there seems to be a lack of mental stability. If you go look at these flat earthers and their conventions, you'll see this. There's a lack of mental stability. There's a lack of discernment and good judgment. There's a lack of fear of the consequences of this belief. There's a lack of fear of the creator of the planet. They are motivated to believe things based on fear. It's another trait. They refuse to take eyewitness accounts seriously, and they reject geology, astronomy, physics, and all their true science that is all about Yehovah, all about the creation. He's the one that created physics, astronomy, geology, and all this stuff. All right, and they're rejecting that. And it seems like they're rejecting that because they're just tired. They're tired of the governments and the wicked governments and all this stuff. And I understand that. I totally understand that. But we can't lose our mind as we're going into the end of the age. The scriptures call us to keep the sound mind. They say if you have your mind stayed on him, you're going to have the sound mind. If you do what he's asking you to do and focus on what he's asking you to focus on, which is not the shape of the world, people. He's asking you to repent. Although maybe you need to repent from that thought. So Landrum from Texas Tech believes that those with a conspiracy mentality have lost the ability to judge when to trust and when to be a skeptic. She says that they view the world through a dark filter where they just assume that all authority, institutions, and corporations are only there to exploit you. So Maggie writes that distrust seems to be the common trait between flat earthers. Other common traits include being religious people, people who are susceptible to too many different conspiracy theories, and people who are biblical literalists. So I know that no matter what logic I use or what angle I come at this from, or how good my video is, or how good I or anyone else proves that the scriptures doesn't teach a flat earth, no matter how much the flat earth deception denies true science and what you can actually see with your eyes, a die-hard flat earther will figure out how to explain these things away, or they will just practice delusionalism and nihilism. I'm not sure how to say that, but they will just follow in the footsteps of their leader, and they will just say it isn't so because they said so, period. End of story. They will say that the science is fake, the world we see is fake, our reality is fake, it's all a lie. Our very existence, they will say, is a lie, and we don't actually really exist. So why live any longer? Why not just get it over with now? Do you see how dangerous this thought is? So to showcase the suspension of reality and the consequences of this theory, the National Geographic, in their documentary Flat Earth versus Round Earth, which has had over 5 million views and nearly 84,000 comments, interviewed Mark Sargent, the once pro-gamer, now one of the leaders of this movement, who said, this is what Mark said, quote, "I believe 100% that we are not on a globe. We are part of a giant studio set, and all the world is a stage, and you're on it." The interviewer, who gave him empirical evidence to the contrary, said, So you are essentially perpetuating ignorance by denying science. So in the film, Mark Sargent actually denied the science that we all saw, and he witnessed with his very own eyes. And so he replies to the interviewer, quote, "I believe that flat Earth could potentially usher in another golden age, or it could usher in an age of chaos," end quote. When he said that, I got chills. He was deeply and darkly happy to bring in chaos making into people's lives. I saw the wickedness in his eyes. I have discernment, and I saw it. In 1 Corinthians 14:33, it says, "For Elohim is not an Elohim of confusion or chaos, but of peace." This man is not from Elohim. He is a deceiver because he's throwing chaos into everything. So simply and seriously said, Mark and Rob and all the rest of them are chaos makers, and they are not going anywhere good. Don't follow them. Unintelligence. I want to talk for just a sec about this. Looking over this past year, 2020, and into 2021, it is clear that humans are going backwards in intelligence. With Black Lives Matter, cancel culture, critical race theory, the world reset, and the Trojan horse of environmentalism conducting medical experiments on humans with the vax passport and throwing out and rewriting our history books to be whatever the left want. The Flat Earth movement fits right in with erasing our history, erasing all the science that has been done on this matter and starting over. But it's not starting over, it's actually going backwards. Neil deGrasse Tyson said on Comedy Central, quote, "This whole thing is just a symptom of a larger problem. It's a growing anti-intellectual strain in this country. It's the beginning of the end of our informed democracy. Of course, in a free society, you can think whatever you want. And if you want to think the world is flat, go right ahead. But if you think the world is flat and you have influence over others, then being wrong becomes harmful to the health and wealth and the security of the citizenry or others. Each generation benefits from what previous generations have learned. Isaac Newton said, 'If I have seen further than others, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants,' end quote. This society is not remembering the work of giants. James 3:1 says, 'Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly.'" So that's why I'm here. I am a teacher, and I want to teach the truth about where we live. And I want to nip this lie in the bud, and I want to get rid of it. So what do we see as the ramifications of the flat earth error? Well, to start, I'll quote from the National Geographic film, Flat Earth versus Round Earth. In it, it states, quote, "It's more than just distrusting government. It's this notion that thousands of years of empirical scientific evidence is now being dismissed as mere conspiracy." And that's where I think it really starts getting dangerous for us all. All right, so I don't care about the pagans who are gravitating to this folly. They are so full of folly and sin and rebellion that they will be lost forever. Sad but true. But what I am concerned about is within the body of Messiah, those who are falling prey to this crap. Those who seem to have little to no discernment about who and what to listen to. Then they begin to engage in it and learn about it and then promote it or propagate it themselves through social media posts and comments. So I'm concerned about the mental health and stability and the soundness of mind of the body of Messiah. So generally speaking, not all within the body of Messiah are showing and proving that they have the ability to discern between fiction and fact. And do remember, he is going to send strong delusions to get you off the fence. So he is going to send these delusions to sort out, who are his people and who are not. The righteous and the wicked are growing together at the same time. So he's going to send these delusions, and people are going to gravitate to them if they want it. And that's one of the ways he's going to weed his garden. it's painful to watch, honestly. So just as we say that those who wear a mask or even a double mask to protect themselves from COVID have truly lost their mind, so it is the same thing when I discover that someone believes in flat earth. I think, where did your mind go? You know? I look down the road and I see people wearing these masks. I'm like, where did your mind go? In fact, I've had conversations with people and I'm like, we all say, wow, you know, everybody seems like they're losing their mind. That seems to be like the catchphrase right now, is they've lost their mind. Well, it's the same way in this flat earth nonsense. I look at people who believe this and I'm like, I think you've lost your mind. Okay, where'd your brain go? So how could the infiltration of this incredible lie affect the body of Messiah? So where could this lead? Because one of the questions, we've got to ask the right question. So what's the problem with it, all right? So this is what we think. Number one, it is a pathway for fear or paranoia to set in. Because nothing is true anymore. Everything is a lie. That's what they're saying. That is like a highway for fear to just come and attach to your heart, right? Number two, it undermines truth in general, and it's invalidating the credibility of the whole Back to Torah movement. Okay, because you got the Back to Torah movement now linked to flat earth, so it's going to undermine everything we're doing over here and the truth that is in Torah, the truth of Torah. So number three, it promotes not having any discernment, thus making believers susceptible to buying more lies. And the end times will be full of lies. The end times are going to be full of delusions, right? Full of delusions that are offered to us. Flat earthers are delusional to actually think that they are not buying into conspiracy theory, but instead that they have uncovered the lies of the spherical earth. But in reality, it is them that are susceptible to buying this and more delusion. So number four, it denies observable science, what you can actually see with your own eyes. Okay, so true flat earthers want to use what they see with their own eyes to try to prove flat earth. So they look, with their own eyes up a 6-mile canal that doesn't seem to have a curve in it, and then they conclude that the earth is flat. But they reject all the other observable things that point to a sphere. For them, it's just about cherry picking what they want to prove what they want. All right, so case in point, as we saw with our own eyes, the experiment with water in space, water wants to come together to form into a ball, period. Not a flat plane, not a cube, not a disc, a ball. And this planet is made primarily of water, people. This is observable science that flat earthers reject. So believing in this flat earth hoax is to deny all the things that we can observe with our own eyes. We take those things we observe and we ask Jehovah for wisdom and knowledge and understanding about them, and he will give it to us. And he has given it to us. But if we can't believe what reality shows us and what wisdom and knowledge and understanding through true science tells us, if we can't believe that, then wouldn't that call into question all eyewitness accounts? Then if you can't believe what you see, you wouldn't be able to believe anyone else who says, I saw, right? You wouldn't be able to believe anyone at all. So how about the eyewitness accounts to Yeshua being raised? That he actually did raise from the dead. Could we believe those eyewitness accounts? He was dead, but then they saw him alive. Do we accept those multiple eyewitness accounts? If you are a flat earther and you deny eyewitness accounts, then you would be denying these eyewitness accounts, because you can't cherry pick which eyewitness accounts you're going to accept or not. Yes, you take eyewitness accounts in front of a jury and then you pull them all together and you vet them and blah, 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 and then you determine. But we have eyewitness accounts for the globe, and we have eyewitness accounts for Yeshua being alive again, right? So I think that's something to really sit with and to think about if you are going down this flat earth track. So again, we're talking about the question, how does this affect the body of Messiah and why does it matter? Well, finally, we're to number 5. And basically, one has to suspend reality in order to believe this flat earth lie. So you have to believe that what you can see doesn't really exist. You have to believe that you and all that is around you is a hoax and nothing really exists, including yourself. So if that is the case, then why even exist? Like I've said before, why not just do away with the pain and end it all now? That is so stinking dangerous, and I feel like that is a big lie creeping into the body. Mark Sargent said in the National Geographic interview that our lives are an illusion. So, do you see the danger there? It would be easy to just, in this lie, commit suicide and just end it all. So why go through all this if it's just a big Truman Show, if it's just a big hoax, right? So, you know, I don't know if you remember in The Matrix, but there was one of the characters was named Cypher, and in the end he ended up, you know, snitching on them and getting them into trouble and stuff. But he basically made a deal with the devil, and he just wanted the reality to be gone. He wanted the fake reality because it was easier. So he sold them out, you know, he paid the price, and he just wanted the hamburger or whatever it was. You know, he wanted to, even though the hamburger wasn't real, he just wanted to think it was real. So reality was too hard. So I've had it. This lie is getting its claws into the scattered, and it's making chaos and havoc in people's lives, and also in my own personal life with my friends. So I'm going to be blunt and brutal as I have been in this series. And I'm going to say, knock it off, Israel, and use your brain. All right? Use your brain. Do not buy the delusion. So may Yahovah bless you with clarity, and may he rescue you from this lie. So thanks for watching all this way. This one was a long one, but stay tuned for part 11 that's coming. Only 2 more videos in this series. Yay, I'm so excited. But in part 11, we're going to talk about a few things, such as we're going to talk about the question again, but we're also going to talk about motives and what is our job as kingdom people. You know, and trust me, it isn't arguing over flat earth. Okay? All right, so we'll talk to you later. Shalom. Bye-bye. It's a family affair. Thank you. Okay. Let's rock and roll this.
Okay.
What? All right, bye. Have a good day. Bye. Leave me in the hole of flat earth, the black hole of flat earth. I know, right?